I cannot end it like this. Aya, that cursed marked sphere should stay hidden forever. Caused so much pain. Bayek of Siwa, 46 BC. Hello and welcome to Visions of the Past. My name is Andrew, and I'm the host of this Assassin's Creed lore podcast. This is episode 67, and today we're going to talk about the Apples of Eden that at one time were in the possession of Bayek of Siwa. Back in episode 59, we spoke about 3 of the known Apples of Eden and a handful of instances where the apples were used, but we did not go through all of them. In that episode, we also discussed the inspiration for the devices, and because of that, today we are only going to talk about the history within Assassin's Creed of the apples that were once in the possession of Bayek of Siwa. The first apple that we're going to talk about was also the first that came into the hands of Bayek. This apple became known by the Templars as Apple of Eden, number 2. This apple was first shown within the first Assassin's Creed game, and then returned in Assassin's Creed Bloodlines, Assassin's Creed Revelations, and Assassin's Creed Origins. It did also show up in 2 novels, Assassin's Creed The Secret Crusade and Assassin's Creed Revelations, and it was also mentioned within the games Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Project Legacy. Before getting into the history of the apple and where it's been, I want to take a moment and look at the powers that it exhibited over the years. The powers that this apple showed the most often was that of illusion projection and mind control, meaning that it could make you see things that weren't there, and that it can be used to make you do things that you don't want to do. It was also able to make those illusions tangible, and had the power to turn its user invisible. Last but not least, it granted its users advanced knowledge beyond the scientific discoveries of the time. This apple was first seen in 49 BC within Ptolemaic Egypt, in the hands of the region's Order of the Ancients, specifically within the hands of the Oracle of Siwa, Mejidu. The Order's goal with the apple was to use it to open the Isu vault that they found under the Temple of Amun in Siwa. A few members of the Order did believe that Bayek of Siwa knew how to get into the vault, so they kidnapped him and his son Kimu and threatened to kill Kimu. The pair tried to get out of the predicament, but it resulted in Bayek thrusting a dagger into Kimu's chest. In 48 BC, Bayek returned to Siwa on a hunt for the men that forced him to kill his son. After killing Mejidu in the Temple of Amun, Bayek claimed the apple. Eventually, though, he gave it to his wife Aya for safekeeping, who in turn gave it to her friend Apollodorus. Apollodorus held on to the apple until his death in 47 BC, when his murderer, Flavius Metellus, took it. Flavius took the apple along with the Staff of Eden that Alexander the Great was buried with to Siwa, and used the pair to open the vault beneath the Temple of Amun. Here, they found a map of the world that was marked with locations of other Isu vaults. When Flavius left with Lucius Septimius, the citizens of Siwa were acting strange, and they left Bayek's best friend Hepzibah dead within the vault. Flavius then took the apple to Cyrenaica, where he was the proconsul, governor of the province, and used it to enslave its population. Eventually, Bayek tracked him there, and they fought inside the Roman Acropolis, and even though he used many of the apple's powers, Flavius fell to Bayek. Retrieving the apple, Bayek hid it in a chest within Aya's hideout in Alexandria. The apple falls out of history at this point, but does reappear at the end of the 12th century in the Holy Land. This is when 10 members of the Knights Templar found it within the catacombs of Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. In July 1191, Al-Mualim, the mentor of the Levantine Brotherhood of Assassins, sent Altair ibn La'ahad to retrieve the apple before the Templar Grand Master Robert de Sab could get a hold of it. Altair, brash and headstrong, walked up to Robert and ended up getting thrown through a wall with no other option but to escape, and he returned to Masyaf. When giving his report, Altair's comrade Malik Asayef delivered the apple to Al-Mualim, and reported the death of his brother Kadar. The retrieval of the apple led directly to Robert de Sable laying siege to Masyaf, though Altair and the other assassins were able to break it. Al-Mualim held onto the apple until September, when, after sending Altair to relearn what it meant to be an assassin by hunting and killing 9 Templars, including Robert, Altair found out that Al-Mualim was a Templar himself. Armed with this knowledge, Altair set out for Masyaf, and after a fight where Al-Mualim used the powers of the apple to attempt to confuse Altair, Altair killed Al-Mualim and gained possession of the apple. Over the next 26 years, Altair held the title of mentor, along with the apple, though he did have issues with one member, Abbas Safan. During this time, Altair learned from the apple new ways to work metal, making a set of armor that was almost indestructible, though after forming the armor, he destroyed the formula of the metal. In 1217, Altair left Masyaf with his wife Maria and son Durim to stop the advance of Genghis Khan, whom Altair suspected was growing his empire because the Khan himself held a piece of Eden. After the death of the Khan, Altair and his family returned to Masyaf in 1228 to find that the assassins were now under the leadership of Abbas, and that everything he worked so hard for had fallen apart. A few days later, after getting to the truth of what happened, Altair and Maria met with Abbas. Abbas demanded that Altair give up the apple in exchange for the details of his son Seth's death. Altair agreed, and the interaction with the man that killed Seth led to Altair using the apple on him in anger, and the man killing Maria when Altair released him. Altair fled Masyaf with Durim and headed to Alamut, where they lived with Seth's widowed wife and 2 daughters. Drowned in grief, Altair lived in exile and studied the apple even more for almost 20 years, to the point that it forced Durim and Seth's family to move to Alexandria. Altair did eventually come out of his grief and return to Masyaf in 1247. At this point in his life, Altair was 82 and didn't move well, but still was able to rally some assassins to him and take back the role of mentor of the Brotherhood by killing Abbas, with a device called the Hidden Gun that the apple had showed him how to make. Over the next 10 years, Altair kept the apple close and rebuilt the Brotherhood. Eventually, though, the city came under siege by the Mongols under Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulagu. On August 12, 1257, Altair gave a codex of his life to Niccolo and Maffeo Polo as they left the city, and then retreated to his library under Masyaf Castle and wished his son Durim to live well with his family. And after sealing the apple in a secret compartment in the library, Altair sat down in the center of the room and passed away. The apple remained in this compartment until Ezio Auditore da Firenze opened the library and the compartment in May 1512. Though because of his time with a different apple of Eden, Ezio decided that this apple should stay hidden away from the world. It's unknown how long the apple sat in Masyaf, but eventually came to the possession of Queen Elizabeth I of England, where in 1559 she hid it inside a globus cruciger. Over the time, the apple moved from England and eventually ended up in the hands of Mahatma Gandhi. After it was discovered that Gandhi's secret to his leadership was the apple, the Templars took interest in him and had him assassinated on January 20th, 1948. The Templars went on to use this apple, along with the apple they had designated Apple of Eden I, to train William Greer on the powers of the apple so that he could grab the Apple of Eden III when U.S. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Greer, secretly an assassin, was a member of the United States Secret Service and the man assigned to drive Kennedy's limousine through Dallas on November 22, 1963. After the assassination of Kennedy, Greer grabbed the apple and made his escape. Apple of Eden II, though, was not seen again until sometime before October 2011, where it was being used on an experiment that involved Abstergo's I-Abstergo satellite. What exactly happened is unknown, but what is known is that Templar Daniel Cross was working as the project lead when he fell under the influence of the apple and killed everyone in the facility, and by the end of that fateful day, the Apple of Eden was destroyed. The last Apple of Eden that we're going to talk about today is known as Akhenaten's apple. The only appearance of this apple is within the Assassin's Creed Origins DLC, The Curse of the Pharaohs. Akhenaten's apple, sometimes referred to simply as the Aten, has the same abilities as most of the other apples of Eden, like conjuring illusions and mind control, but it also has the interesting ability to raise what is called the Pharaoh's Curse, first known to appear during the rule of Imhotep IV, who associated it with the sun disk Aten. During Imhotep IV's time with it, he grew to worship it and changed his name to Akhenaten. Along with his wife, Queen Nefertiti, Akhenaten moved the Egyptian populace to the religion worshipping the Aten. After their death, the apple fell into the hands of their son, King Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun, though, chose to restore the polytheistic religion in place before Akhenaten, and entrusted the apple to the high priestesses of Amun. The apple stayed safe in their hands for about 150 years until the reign of Ramses II. With the help of the priestess of Amun and the apple, Ramses was able to launch attacks and wage wars with other regions in order to expand his empire. During this time, the high priestesses, who were also the highest-ranking members among the priests of Amun, used the apple to keep the tombs of the pharaohs safe from tomb robbers. During one of these efforts to stop a group of tomb robbers, Nitocris was caught in the act by the robbers and was then murdered by them. This whole incident took place within the necropolis of the nobles, and most importantly, in front of her daughter's eyes. Her daughter, Isidora, turned out to be the next person in line to use the apple. When Nitocris died, Isidora took her place as the high priestess known as the god's wife of Amun. Consumed by the murder of her mother, Isidora used the apple to place a curse on the land of Egypt in an act of revenge against the grave robbers. As a result of this curse, the spirits of past pharaohs were summoned to the world of the living. This curse and the devastation upon the land caught the attention of Bayek of Siwa. After fighting apparitions of the dead pharaohs Akhenaten, Nefertiti, Tutankhamun, and Ramses II, Bayek managed to kill Isidora with his hidden blade. With her dying breath, Isidora asked why her god Amun gave her such a powerful relic, but still let her fail in her endeavors. Bayek then explained to her that Amun did not give her the power, but instead gave her a choice. But her decision was heavily influenced by her bitterness caused by the death of her mother. With Isidora's death, Bayek then came in possession of the apple. Instead of keeping it to himself, he decided to give it to a man named Setka, a descendant of Ramses II, because he had seen the power of the apple and he did not want it. So Bayek asked him to hide it. Sadly, this did not last long, however, as during one of Bayek's travels, he came across Setka's corpse. As it seemed, Setka was attacked by cobras and had died there. Unable to find the apple on Setka, Bayek had hoped that he had hidden the apple well. Akhenaten's apple really doesn't have a lot of story to talk about, but it is always possible that after it disappeared with Setka's death, that it became one of the other apples that we know of within the lore. It is nice to see the series use the apples to explain why Akhenaten moved Egypt into a monotheistic religion, and then Tutankhamun to move it back to the polytheistic, along with Ramses and his wars. One thing I do have to ask, though, is if Akhenaten had this apple of Eden, is that why the Order of the Ancients was formed? The reason why I ask this is that Akhenaten reigned until right around 1335 BC, and near the end of his reign, it is believed that Smetker was his co-regent and pharaoh himself until right around 1334 BC. And within the lore, Sekhper was the founder of the Order of the Ancients. What if the founding of the order is in response to Akhenaten finding the apple and starting to push the people to monotheism? And Sekhper gathered people who didn't agree with that, but wanted power for themselves, and used it to eventually lead to Sekhper's rise and Akhenaten's death. The other apple that we looked at today is one of, if not the most important of the pieces of Eden that we have ever seen within Assassin's Creed. Not only is it the first apple that we see, it is the apple that gave Altair the information to build his armor and the first hidden gun, but also gave him information on the future of the Assassin Order. This apple has been everywhere from Egypt to England to India to the United States, and has been present during so many important parts of human history. I do have a question about it, though. Having a conversation recently within the Assassin's Creed Discord server about Moses and Assassin's Creed, it was asked if Moses had a staff and an apple based on some of the things that Al-Mu'allim had said. I thought about it, and Moses is seen as the builder of the Ark of the Covenant, which is what we're told the apple is presiding in 1191. And Moses did lead the Israelites out of Egypt, which is an easy way to explain how the apple got from Egypt to the Holy Land. The downside to this thinking is that it would take Moses from the idea that he lived somewhere around the 5th century BC to right around the same time that Jesus lived. For me, that alone makes it seem unlikely, and there is always a way to explain that it's the same apple, but wasn't put in the covenant until it reached Solomon's temple that didn't have Moses move across centuries. But what do you think about these two apples and the questions that I have presented today? Let me know over on Twitter. Thank you for joining me today. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for new episodes. If you love the Visions of the Past podcast, please subscribe and share this podcast with others. If you have any questions about Assassin's Creed or topics that you'd like me to cover, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at visions_AC. You can find those links in the show notes below. Until next time, my assassin friends, make sure to follow the creed. And to those Templars listening, may the Father of Understanding guide you.